Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. If you're first time here, welcome, and if you are an old timer, welcome back. I've managed to make it out into the backyard. It is not raining for a change, although I gather that the next 5 days, according to Steve, is supposed to be pretty wet. And yesterday, and I guess a couple of days before too, there was so much humidity. It was like you were walking through this misting. I think I had to say that last week, didn't I? I think I mentioned just how misty it was. So it was like there was a fog between me and my glasses, and it just, luckily today it has dried up enough that I can be outside. I wanted to turn the fountain off. Okay, I hope that's better for sound. The other crazy thing out here is that this backyard has gone from having almost no ants to just being ant nirvana. So if there's a lot of weird body stuff going on, I'm killing ants. Well, not brushing them off. Anyhow, we're here to talk about my good friend Jill MacLean, her book, The Arrows of Mercy. Now, I mentioned last week that I had just started it. This is a self-published book by Tellwell, and I've asked Jill to send me a link because I know you can get it at our local booksellers here in Halifax, but if you're interested in this book and you're further afield, I think you might have to purchase it through Tellwell Producing, so I'm not positive. So I will include those informations below as soon as I get them. Okay, I love this book. And not just because Jill and I, share a glass of wine once a month. Okay, so Jill MacLean is an author of middle grade books. The first one being The 9 Lives of Travis Keating, and which I had the honor of reading when she submitted it for a competition for the Writers Federation of Nova Scotia. And as I was reading it, I was just going, oh my God, this is incredible. This is like miles above. It was really, really good. And then we were given the information that we had to take it out of the competition because she had received a notification from a publisher that they wanted it. So in that case, she couldn't compete because it was for unpublished authors. So she's just been like shooting great darts ever since. And she had a dream to write a book for adults that was based in the Middle Ages. And for her, she's chosen 1348. And we have Edmund, who has returned from the French Wars, and he was an archer. So the archer that has got the long bow, and not the cross bolts, but the big archer things, and the long arrows. And he was recruited because he was always winning the competitions in his local village. So the king's men went around and recruited the best of the archers, and off he went to France and had a bloody miserable time, terrible time. And that's part of his dilemma upon returning, because he was attacked by a dog called a mastiff. They're the big hunter dogs. So his face was mauled, and he comes back with injuries to his face. He gets beaten up along the way, so his nose gets broken. He's got problems with having been. Why was he whipped? He was whipped somewhere along the way. And he gets back to his little village, which is not very big, probably, I don't know, like maybe 30 families, something along that size, and they are under they're literally under the walls of the local castle. And so he is landless because he was the second son, for one thing, and he was also born after his mother's husband died. So she had a quickie and it resulted in Edmund. So he's illegitimate, and so he's come back with riches enough that he can purchase a lease and become a farmer and get a wife. And he's got his heart set on Julia. And he has had ideas that she loves him, and while he's away at war, as often does, things become quite conflated and inflated, and so what his actual relationship with her is. She's not very confused, but he's pretty confused. and why she keeps rejecting him is, is it because of his face? She wants more in life. She wants to get away from having to look after all these kids and be working nonstop, and so she's going to try and find a husband who can provide that. I mean, that's just the sort of the plot line. There are other women in the story who are healers, and there's a priest who is there because he's kind of he doesn't really understand compassion or empathy. He understands the rhetoric of being a priest and the finer points of the religion, but he doesn't really understand how to deal with people. So he's been sent to this small village to get some humility. Edmund has an older brother who is just an out-and-out bully. They have a very rocky relationship. And let's see, now Edmund is a poet at heart. And one of the things about Jill MacLean's writing is the plot is, like, it's a good solid plot and the characters are really well drawn, but she has got an excellent sentence craftsmanship. And she is also a poet, and so Edmund has the heart of a poet, and periodically we see into his heart and his word crafting. And because he's untutored and uneducated, we get a much more of a naturalist and naturalistic kind of poetry from him. He's not constrained by, all the rules that go into the rhyming and the rhythms and so on. So has a much more evocative, flowing kind of poetry. So as things happen in his life, he is, because he can't read and write, these are preoccupations in his brain. And so we see the results of that as, every so often in the storyline. And they're just, some of them are so charming and others of them are really heart-wrenching. The other thing about Edmund is that he is a very intelligent man, and he convinces the priest convinces him to take some lessons in reading and writing. So that's moving along quite nicely, and he and the priest are developing a friendship outside of the priest congregant relationship. They're becoming friends for themselves. The plague is coming along. It was kind of like COVID, you could feel it just kind of creeping closer and closer. You're thinking, when's it going to get here? And so they have that kind of, despairing, oh my God, it's going to happen any day. The plague eventually arrives, and there's, of course, just the complete disruption of the plague in the village, and there's good guys and there's bad guys, and we see the turmoil of the priest, we see the continuing turmoil of Edmund. Some of the other characters have got more than just superficial responses to what's happening in the plot line. They go a bit deeper in themselves as well. There's because it's in the 1300s, there's a lot of referencing to the teachings of the church, but how that actually fits with a individual who has been to war, has done acts of cruelty, and has deep remorse. And so if he can't come to terms with what he's done, then how is God going to do that, let's say, or Jesus, or the whole kind of confessional thing for him is a real bone of contention. And so there's multiple layers to this story. We see the nature, the setting, we see this countryside that Jill made a point of going to visit, which was, I'm pretty sure I'm telling this right, it was her childhood environment. So she went back with her son, and they traveled the side roads and the paths and so on, and she did a beautiful job of creating that landscape. She did a beautiful job of creating the village. The characters have been very well drawn, and all levels, even the sort of the drunk fellow in the pub, very well done. So I totally recommend this. I think it's Canadian, so that really helps in terms of if your book club is looking for Canadian content, or if you are. If you like historical fiction, this is top-notch historical. It's so well written. I don't think I don't think that you could have any quibbles with anything from a sort of realistic kind of point of view. I don't think you'll point to the page and go, that never happened. The characters that are the main characters have got many multiple levels. There's how to function within the society, there's how to function within your own brain and your own heart. How do you do that in your family that doesn't necessarily want you to be stepping outside certain boundaries? So there's many things that are being explored and challenged and not always resolved, which is kind of nice. Did you close the front door? Yeah, do you mind locking it? Okay. Have fun. Bye-bye. Steve's off to go sailing. It's a hot day, the humidity's going to be hot, but he's looking forward to it being cooler down on the water. Okay, so I think that's it for the Arrows of Mercy, and hopefully I get some information. If it's not there immediately, because I think Jill might be on vacation, I will put it in there as soon as possible. So the other two books I read, well, I listened to an audiobook, completely the opposite direction, and I guess I realized that one of the things the audiobook does provide is an opportunity to sit somewhere and knit, which I complained about the last time, but as I was not listening to audiobooks, I thought, oh, that's kind of good timing, especially when you're waiting for the potatoes to boil or something. So I was listening to A Peculiar Combination by Ashley Weaver. It's on Hoopla, and it was read by Alison Larkin, and the main character is Electra McDonald, and this is taking place in the 1941 England, World War II. It's not really dealing with all the bombing and so on, but she is a lock picker by profession, and on the side she fixes locks. And this is the family trade, and they've been in the trade of breaking into safes and locks and that sort of thing for one or two generations for sure. She's got an interesting background, and she's being recruited by the intelligence to help break up a spy ring, and they need her to break into a safe. And so it's a cozy mystery, and there's one or two bodies along the way. There's some good tension. The setting is nice. She's a very strong character. She's not we've got the person who's from the military is kind of highbrow and swanky, and she's an educated urchin, if you like, but she's a woman, and she just doesn't take any fannying about from Major. I really enjoyed it. I've gone to book 2, which I don't have in front of me. I think it's The Key of Deceit, I think yeah. Anyhow, they're both audiobooks, and I really enjoyed this enough that I went to the trouble of getting book number 2. And just a good solid mystery. I'm sure you can get this in paperback in the libraries too. I just didn't bother. And the last book I'm going to show you today is called Show Way by Jaqueline Woodson, illustrated by Hudson Talbot. Now, I'm sure that if you do any kind of reading in middle grade and look for diversity, you will know Jaqueline Woodson. She's just a lovely author. She's done books for picture books, and she's done books for middle readers, and I haven't read a single thing that I haven't adored. And let me get to a page where, okay. So there's some lighthearted illustration that's going on, and there's some sort of darker, sadder moments. And this begins with Jaqueline Woodson's own genealogy and the first enslaved people's woman who arrived in America. And let me see. There's actually, somewhere along here, there's actually the family tree so that you can see. One of the ladies who was enslaved, her name was lost, but basically it goes through the different generations, and we get a mother-daughter, mother-daughter, mother-daughter combo all the way down till we get to Jaqueline herself, and just where they were and what they had to do and when they were freed, and it's a very, it's short. There's not it's just, the language takes you totally through the genealogy in a lovely story type way, and there's a few phrases that repeat, like loved those babies up so. Yes, they loved those babies up. And there's, the stories kind of pick up the girls when they're 7 years old, so that's another point of continuity. And it's really just a charming, charming book. And I think it covers a lot of history, and it's not fiction, it's autobiographical. So, and also the artist is just really managed to capture the faces of the children and the old people around them. So that's it for me today. I hope the lighting was better and the sound was better, and I hope no ants bit me. I may have been harmed in the making of this video. We'll go inside and see. I hope all your reading dreams adventures continue to come true, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye for now. Missy prefers to help with the videos from the top of the deck, where she's too lazy to even watch.